We are continuing the fight against HIV right here on Morning at NTV. I do have the ED for UGANET. That is Dora Musinguzi-Chichonche, and she's here to help us expound on this conversation. Why shouldn't we be discriminating on people with HIV and so forth? And she'll also be expounding on another conversation, the linkage between non-communicable diseases and HIV. More people have been dying as a result of NCDs than AIDS-related illnesses. She shall also compound on that issue also. And also we shall be taking a look at the 33 years since government expedited this fight on HIV. How far? All right. Very good morning, Dora Musinguzi-Chichonche. Thank you for joining us. All right. Share with us why UGANET is looking at zero discrimination as your main strategy. Let's start from there.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning to viewers. So today, 1st of March, is a very, very important day globally. Advocates that work on human rights, HIV, are commemorating this day because it is one opportunity to create awareness and shed light on why we need to be an equal world. Because discrimination comes because some categories of people are treated better than the others, are recognized better than the others, and the invisible, the invisible continue to suffer in many ways, and particularly for HIV, UGANET puts a core attention on discrimination because it's the one that makes more people suffer and get out of the treatment bracket, or not be seen at all and remain to suffer. And there are many categories of people. Can
you be discriminated so hard in that you refuse to go to a medical center to get your ARTs?
Oh yes, of course.
How
and that's
so?
What happens. So when you feel HIV is a stigma condition, right from the moment, many years ago, since the 80s. And though today, it's a lot better. You know, the treatment is there's more openness, but the invisible, not direct, subtle discrimination happens. And you think how it plays out every other day. The way, the biases people hold, they will treat other people differently. And when HIV comes into the question, even more suffering happens. You've seen the wars. The new war on HIV discrimination is on social media. We see a lot of shaming, a lot of, you know, undermining the biases. You've seen people post people's results on social media, and then it's so many people are coming on and shaming, and that devalues a human being. And many people who identify as that will not be able to come forward and take their treatment. So be like, I don't want to associate as HIV positive. I don't want to associate as the suffering. So people don't get the courage
they'll see me and they'll shame me.
Yes, they don't get the courage to go test because the environment is not enabling. People fear you, they know you're dangerous, and then because of that, many people are being enriched. They won't test, so you will never know that they are positive or not, and they'll never get on treatment, and they will die more, and they will infect other people. So we'll keep rotating around HIV. That's why an environment that is stigma-free, discrimination-free, enables all the goals on HIV prevention. We are towards the end of AIDS. There is every indicator that if we did what needs to get done, we would achieve the end of AIDS. But stigma, discrimination is a real barrier. And these are barriers that are addressed by laws, by policies, by actors coming together to deal with biases, but also unlock those areas which are clogged. But sometimes our laws enable the discrimination.
Go ahead and explain that.
For example, for HIV criminalization, for HIV law, we have a lot of language that is pointing on the bad people, and it is promoting that punishment of people who are HIV positive, and many have been punished unfairly and experienced the pangs of discrimination in the process. We have so many women who are in prison right now because of HIV discrimination. So because of that, we have to put a light on what does discrimination even mean for women and girls. They are the bigger team that are in prison today. just because the gender is discriminated, and they are
see.
suffering because of HIV criminalization. So men and women are experiencing the pangs of HIV criminalization. Legislated in our law books, you see, generally, women and girls are also discriminated based on their gender, leave alone the HIV status. But because this is a number that is a category that's most likely to be infected with HIV, they get a double discrimination because of their gender, and then the issue is exacerbated.
Indeed.
We've just been discussing COVID and what the COVID restrictions mean for everyone. But look at the COVID situation, the impact that women and girls faced. In the first 1 month of COVID, everybody, all our TVs, NTV, everywhere, the stories were so full of men are killing women, women are killing men, but mostly the number that died and the number that experienced a lot of challenges were women.
Indeed.
Look at the girls, the teenage pregnancies. According to the media stories that we followed, the cases came to 7,000. That is gender discrimination, suffering because of
7,000
COVID.
pregnancies.
That's 3 universities.
And if you go to Kabale, I was there doing the People's Parliament, it was 5,000 in one jurisdiction of Kabale. 5,000 pregnant young girls.
So that is an issue of discrimination. Why don't we ask, why does a particular gender suffer more significantly? Because now, if 5,000 just in Kabale, right? These are 5,000 girls that won't go to school.
Very insightful conversation I'm having with Dora Musinguzi Chichoncho. She is the Executive Director of UGANET. Of course, we also do know that candidate learners who are sitting for their Uganda Certificate of Exams today. But then, you got a Certificate of Education exams. But then we'd like to know a situation analysis of how the situation is unfolding. Let's take you to Koboko, where Rashula Didi, our correspondent, is on standby to give us the latest. Very good morning, Rashula Didi. Bring us up to speed with the latest.
A very good morning to you, me and the studio and our viewers. I'm coming to you live from Koboko in one of the schools, that is the Nyarlo Secondary School, where today we're seeing that some of the classes, the semi-candidates, Senior 3 and Senior 5 are reporting back. Meanwhile, also the candidates who are in Senior 4 are sitting for their first paper today, writing their physics paper today. This morning I was able to visit some of the schools to see what is the turn-up of these students as they report back to school, and also as these candidates will be writing their first paper.
Yeah.
In Nyarla Secondary School, a total of 87 Senior 4 candidates have been registered, so meaning that a total of 87 candidates will be expected to write their first paper, that is physics practicals. And then for the case of Senior 3, we have a total of 150 Senior 3 candidates, Senior 3 students who are supposed to report.
Yeah.
But however, Romeo, I need to confirm to you that in most of the schools that NTV was able to visit this morning, the turnout for the same candidates who are reporting back to school today is really very low. You'll find that out of 150 students are expected to report, less than 30 have reported in some of their schools, and others have around 70. But of course, for the candidate classes, these examinations are supposed to kick off at exactly 9. That's when they'll be having checking and other things.
Yeah.
And of course, entering the practical room.
Rashula Didi, if you can still hear me.
Yes, I'm
Were you able to talk to some of the parents within the jurisdiction of Koboko, and what are their reasons as to why they're not sending some of their children to school?
Well, speaking to some of the parents on why they have not sent their children to school, some of them are saying because of COVID, their businesses were affected, so sending these students to school has become hard. And also, you know that this time we're having the scientific learning where these learners are supposed to report with other requirements like masks, sanitizers. So they're saying some of the requirements are much and they cannot be in person to afford within this shortest duration. So most of them are saying probably by end of this week, they'll be in person to send their learners to school. But again, this morning, at least when I visited some of the schools, the teachers are trying their best to see that they try to advise these learners on what they're expected to do as the country still has COVID-19 virus amid us. So at least in some of the schools, you find that when these learners report, they are stopped at the gate and some of the requirements are checked for things like sanitizers, face masks, for those who are in boarding section. Those things are must. You don't have, you are sent home. So that's what is happening currently.
Yes, also Rashula Adidi, on the ground, I'm sure you've been visiting some of these schools within the Koboko jurisdiction. Are they implementing the standard operating procedures or the guidelines that were set forth by the Ministry of Health and Education?
Yes, Romeo, at least most of the schools that I was able to visit, they are implementing the SOPs. At the gate, you find that most of the schools at least have something where these learners can wash their hands, and then before going to class, you are being checked, your temperature is being checked, and the temperature is being noted down. And also, they have sanitizer at the gate for the visitors, people like parents, people like us, the journalists who might want to visit the school to see how the learners are reporting. So at least the schools are observing the SOPs. Of course, now for the learners, to cope up with this new normal is very difficult, but they will have to adhere to. You find that others forget the first one, shake hands, but the teachers are trying to stop them. No, don't shake hands, we still have COVID amid discuss.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Rashul Adidi, for that update. It's been great talking to you this beautiful Monday morning.
Okay, thank you, Romeo.
All right, I still have Dora Musinguzi. Yes, she is the Executive Director for UGANET, and we're talking about Zero Discrimination Day. The fight on HIV still continues, but there is laxity from members of the community. You have women, girls who say, yes, I'd rather get pregnant than get HIV.
I'd rather get HIV than get
I'd rather get HIV than get pregnant. That's what they are saying, meaning they fear pregnancy more than they do HIV. Why, Dora Musinguzi?
Well, it's all perception and biases. Right now, there's been lots of progress in AIDS treatment.
You can live longer.
You can live longer. You do not look like you have any serious condition. So it is inside there. And then with pregnancy, of course, it will be seen. So it is just that we indeed have been lax as a community and need to get better. But with continuous engagement, awareness, the communities need to keep getting along. You see, with COVID, we got a lot of awareness creation, and then we laxed, and then it increased, and then we had to keep, you know. So it's about continuous engagement. But back on the question of discrimination, you've just been talking to a class situation where few people are coming to school. Believe me or you, there will be less girls reporting to school than was expected.
That was my next question, yes.
They are pregnant. A number of them, thousands of the girls are pregnant. They cannot go to school. You see, others got married, early marriage as early as 13. Got married. They were married off right from the lockdown.
And if you are saying 5,000 students or children did get pregnant within the Kabali jurisdiction, it could also mean that 5,000 got infected with HIV. If the people, all the perpetrators were infected with HIV.
That is
so
the
we might be dealing with discrimination of young girls who are going back to school with HIV. Expound on that.
Yeah, so that is why equality is a very important issue. And for HIV, it is most critical because if it is unaddressed, we will not close the tap. It will go on and on and on. Ask why we believe that probably COVID might be done in a few years, but we have been on the AIDS fight for the 30 plus years. And if we don't do what needs to get done, we might remain on this journey for a very long time, you see. So with all the evidence and all the science, we've been told that if we could close the cap on discrimination, we will actually close the cap on AIDS. You see, so it is the social issues that are going to give us the last mile on ending AIDS. It is human rights empowerment, people knowing that they have a right, they have a voice, they are visible. You see, discrimination is an issue of the law. It's an issue of the Constitution. Our Constitution in Uganda guarantees everybody a right to live a life of dignity. You're born equal. We are born equal, we die equal. But as we live our lives, you know, socially, men are more powerful than women. That is why you have thousands that were raped, early married off, defiled, because they won't fight back. It's okay. The girls can get married at 13. Opportunity is closed. You're opening up to poverty. A whole generation has been opened into poverty. A whole generation has been poured into poor health outcomes, HIV infections. So we need to be to be having this conversation as a progressive community,
indeed.
because if we must address disease, if we must address HIV and really close it, if we must address a human's dignity, we must close off discrimination.
Indeed, with the reopening of schools taking center stage today, Durham Sings, I'm sure you know of this. Schools are reopening today,
Yeah,
have
sure.
non-candidate class learners going back P6,
Yes.
Senior 3 and Senior 5. But then the main conversation is largely centering around COVID-19.
Yes.
Sensitizing these young students on how
To
best they
keep
can
safe.
implement these SOPs on COVID-19. But then
Yeah.
there's another epidemic, HIV.
Yeah.
Many contracted the same during the pandemic. The 1 year when they were away from school.
Yes.
Should we also veer the energy or keep it at par with COVID-19, but also look at HIV as an epidemic that might be roiling the young children within our schools?
That is what the calls have been about. There's been a lot of, pushing to government, let us deal with COVID, but in an integrated way.
I think the question was confusing a little bit. What I'm saying is COVID-19, we are going to be focusing on COVID-19 sensitization when the
Yes.
students go back
Yes.
today.
Should we also
be sensitizing them on HIV prevention and so forth, like we used to?
Yes, and that is the best approach that should be happening. That is what advocates are calling for. Integration. Do not focus on COVID-19 alone, because the other diseases are taking root. Right from the start in March, when we got into the lockdown, of course it was emergency situation. You had to deal with the elephant that had just appeared. But as soon as we realized that COVID was harming women, harming girls, teenage pregnancies, we didn't become as aggressive to integrate.
I hear you.
That is why the directly impacted sector is going to be education. There are lots of girls that are going to see the exams when they are expecting babies. There are lots of girls that have been closed out of that opportunity because we didn't integrate. So even now, as schools are opening, a person that is keen to gender inequalities, they will need to be addressing the needs of the girls who've managed to come through again to school, but know that most of them are not coming home. Their needs need to be addressed, but also to keep all these diseases in check. We must remain safe from COVID-19. We must remain safe from HIV. And that is why today is important globally. Globally, the conversation is on, will everybody be treated? Will we have an equal access to the vaccine?
Indeed.
But you don't know. The poor will not access the
We've already started talking about
COVID-19.
unequal access to the vaccine.
Of
We've already
course.
started talking about how some people at the upper echelons of government have already gotten vaccinated before all Ugandans can
This
get the
is
same.
inequality, yes.
Indeed.
So for the European communities, the America, they are trying to treat all their people. But also these countries are selling us this same vaccine at a very high rate. You understand?
Indeed.
So probably our country may not afford it for everybody at the same time. So even when it comes into this country, there will be a privileged few that can access it. There will be those that will never get it, or will get it 3 years, 5 years down the road, when COVID has already had the better of our communities. So that is why in all policy work, all policy approaches, we need to be thinking dignity for all, health for all, equality for all, because there are those that are traditionally left behind. We don't see some people. We might see men and not see women. We might see women and not see children. We might see the rich and not see the poor. We might see those who afford and those who can't afford. Look at the education situation. Glad that finally today schools are opening and Ugandan citizens can afford an education. There's been people in school and others not in school. You see, in the same country, same environment, we need to start to question why inequality lingers on, why it flourishes, and the dangers that is causing.
Dora Musinguzi, yes, there's a pertinent question. It might sound simpleton, but it's a pertinent one.
Yeah.
Are you worried that some students or young girls might be stopped at the gates or in the due course when they go back to school because of HIV? We all know that when students go back, some of these schools first carry out some tests, either for pregnancy and HIV. Are you worried that those with HIV might be sent back home? Because for the pregnancies, the Minister of Education did advise these schools not to send these girls back home.
So because of the issue we addressed earlier, that these days HIV discrimination is not direct, it is happening in a subtle way, but it is happening. We may not experience teachers, the schools, sending away learners because of their HIV positive status. But we will, these students are going to experience discrimination should they know of their HIV status. Discrimination in the way they live with everyone, in the way they learn. So the environment at school might be complicated, although they may not be chased back. Because if a school closes an opportunity for learning because of HIV, then that's where the better part of the law will challenge them. They can be sued because the law protects everyone from HIV discrimination. So it is the indirect, the subtle way that it happens that impacts. But that they would face clear implications of the law.
Dora Musinguzi, we are still having this conversation, very insightful on zero discrimination on HIV. As students in the non-candidate classes, that is P6, Senior 3, Senior 5, go back to school. And also the candidate learners are sitting for their examinations, the Senior 4 candidates, for the Uganda Certificate of Education exams today. Let's link to Nakato to give us another situation analysis on what is happening today as students sit for their UCE examinations. A very good morning, Nakato. She is in Kasangati. What is the latest?
Good morning. We are here at Kasangati Police Station, where head teachers of various schools, at least within Wakiso district, are picking the exams that are going to be written by the students for the Uganda Certificate of Examinations, or Senior 4. We are starting with Senior 4 as usual, in spite of the pandemic that happened, but we know that these exams have been delayed by a year. They were supposed to be written last year, but they were never written, unfortunately. We know that around 333,775 candidates will be writing their exams today, and of these, 166,294 are boys, while 167,481 are girls. They're going to be starting with their physics practicals as usual, and then also it will be followed by the art paper later on in the mid-afternoon. Today I wanted to find out what is the process that head teachers go through to pick their exams before we head out to the schools themselves to see how they've organized themselves. However, we also know that a lot of emphasis has been placed on the SOPs that were put in place by the Ministry of Health and also the Ministry of Education to make sure that both the head teachers and also the candidates are protected from COVID-19. So you can see here a number of head teachers are all wearing their masks, and they are trying to register for their exams to take them, because according to the stipulations of UNEB, these exams have to start at 9 a.m. So they have to register for these exams and then also rush back to their schools and then distribute them to the candidates. However, we also know that the Ministry of Education has encouraged all schools to make sure that they comply with the guidelines, especially the issue of social distancing. So we shall have to get to these schools to find out how they complied with these SOPs, how they managed to make sure that they give the children or the candidates enough space when they're writing their exams, to make sure that they have either sanitizers or washing points for all the candidates as they come in to write their exams. It is going to be a very trying period for all the teachers, for all candidates, but the education system has to continue. The education curriculum has to move on, and this is a vital part of the education system going forward. So these exams are going to be written for the most of this month and probably into a little bit of the next month. And then also we shall see the primary 7 candidates also writing their exams. But today the emphasis is mostly on the Senior 4 candidates. I was hoping to talk to one of the head teachers here to tell us how the situation has been. Sir, good morning. Good morning, how are you, sir? Yes, I'm just Nakata and I'm with NTV. Could I talk to you very briefly? First of all, could we get to know your name, sir?
Faisal, definitely my name. from Chinawa High School, Kasangati.
Okay, so tell us, how has the process been while you've been preparing for the candidates and their exams that are starting today in comparison to the past years?
The process has not been so easy for us, especially where you know that it is the new normal. We are looking at the SOPs, we are looking at social distancing, we are looking at sanitizing. All these are demands that we must meet, and yet the exams must go on.
In terms of finances, have you not been constrained?
We can say have been constrained because the parents are very poor. They don't have money, and yet the students must take exams. Many of them have not completed the fees. We are still struggling, but we must get through.
Okay. So how are you? Are you confident that you've prepared your candidates enough for these exams, considering the fact that their education was disrupted last year when the schools were locked out or locked down?
Yeah, we are confident enough because we have had enough time with them. We have prepared them since we started, when we were led to begin in October, and even when we started this year. I think we are ready to do the national exam.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So that is one of the head teachers here at Kasangati Police Station who is preparing to pick the exams and take them back to his school in Chinawa. We are going to keep on giving you updates through the day to see how the school candidates are coping, how the schools are coping, and to see whether this new normal really will work for the exam period this time around, or maybe there will be some challenges that then the Ministry of Education will have to come in and address. Right now, we are witnessing still more head teachers are coming in to pick their exams, and we are confident once they are done with this process, they are going to be able to go back and give out the exams. So, Romeo, that is it from me here in Kasangati. Let me come back to you and you continue with the morning show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nakato. Double trouble reopening of schools for the non-candidate class learners, that is P6, Senior 3 and Senior 5, and also the examinations on the same day, causing havoc for many of the teachers and the learners themselves. We are talking about the Uganda Certificate of Examinations of Education exams that are taking center stage today. Let's go to Ivan Walanyolo, who is at Nkumba University for another situation analysis. A very good morning, Ivan. What's the latest? What is the latest?
Thank you very much. A very good morning to you, Ramya Busika, and our audience. I'm coming to you from Nkumba University in Katabi Town Council, Wakiso District. But of course, we know today it's when the schools are fully reopening, especially to the rest of the candidates, unlike the lower levels that have not gone to schools this time here. But of course, where I'm standing at Nkumba University, it's where I studied. But initially, at such a time, you would see that get very busy. Students coming in, this time you would see a big line, especially when we have the SOPs. I expected that I would meet a very big line at the entrance, but we have not been able to see that. Not only that, but also as I have been coming here along the roads, we would see different uniforms, young boys and girls going to school, but today it's not the case. Probably I can say, or conclusively say that this first day we may have a low turn-up of these young boys and girls going to school. But of course, there are reasons that one cannot tell, especially from the tuition and fees, from the rest of the parents across the country, not only here in Entebbe. But of course, even this place, this is the parking, and we would be seeing this place full, either students, cars, or staff. But we have the other side. But still, I can emphasize that there is a low turn-up of students and the young boys and girls who are returning to school today. For the universities, we know they've been able to use the e-learning system, especially for those, but also there are some practical courses that probably may need physical engagement between the lecturer and the students. But I want to speak to the e-learning officer of Nkumba University here, Mr. Joseph, to just let us know why are we having this lot. Joseph, welcome with me on Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much. I very much welcome too.
Yeah, we are seeing a low turn-up of students at the campus. What could be the reason?
The reason could basically be the staggered mode that we are employing, or that we are following as per the President's directive, that few students, especially year ones and year twos, will be here, and they are using the second gate of students. And then two, the other bit is that those who are not here are being engaged online. So we're having the online mode where students are being engaged. At the same time, there are also those who are appearing for physical classes.
Joseph, I studied from here. Yep. Where very many at such a time would be very many. I expected that students are eager to return to the classes, given the time that they have been home, because they can now have a physical engagement with their lecturers. But Today is when they're supposed to return, but we're seeing, I know we're using the e-learning system, but what could be some of the other reasons far beyond the institutional side?
I want to categorically state that as we speak right now, classes are going on, started at 7:30 in the morning, 7 sharp in the morning, so classes are already going on. Now, the other reasons that are beyond the institutional level could be probably, is it internet? Could be fees, that is tuition, and tuition is a very important issue. Some parents do not have the money right now. Many of them have lost their jobs. But we feel that with the current state and what we put in place, we should be able to engage all these two parties and have our learners back on ground.
As they return, are we going to see the e-learning process take center stage, or this time more of traditional class engagement resuming?
Thank you. We shall be having a blended mode of learning where we have both the technology and the physical or traditional modes of classroom being put together to be able to engage the learners. Because at the end of the day, we want them to be engaged, want them to be happy, want them to be to share knowledge with each other, want them to research and so on. This can only be enhanced with the e-learning. So we're having a blended mode where we have physical classes going to happen. At the same time, we shall also be having the online bit where we have resources, notes, that is classroom notes, discussion forums, chats being put up for them to be able to discuss and follow the trail online.
Fees is one of the big reasons, like you said, students could have not come in big numbers this morning here. What are you doing as Nkumba to make sure that these students can return to school, given the fact that some parents may not be able to give a tuition at the immediate time they have to return?
Thank you. There is a flexible payment mode of 40-40-20. That is pay 40, and then 20. And then we are also human beings. In the absence of such a scenario, the Office of the Academy Registrar and Finance are very well open for such people. They may come on ground, or they may simply make a call, express their concerns. And once those concerns are being expressed and they are being verified to be true, then the office will do something for them. We've had a number of those who have been able to attend exams or do exams without completing their tuition.
Wow.
So,
Joseph, for time purposes, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you very much. A good morning.
Wow. Joseph Ravs is the e-learning officer at Nkumba University, just letting us know why we are not having many of the students going for classes or going for lectures this beautiful morning. It is a sign that probably today being the first day of the young boys and girls going to school, we may not have that big number going. Like I said, when I've been coming here along the roads, initially you would see many different uniforms of these young boys and girls, but today it's quite difficult. You only see 1, 2, 3. So we may not have that big number of these young boys and girls going to attend their lessons or lectures here. Well, I hand over back to you, Ramyo, in the studio from me here at Nkumba University. Take it from me. Good morning.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Wait.
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom Bundles using My MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles. MTN. You're watching Morning at NTV.
Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us on the #1 breakfast show in the country, Morning at NTV. I still do have Dora Musinguzi Chichoncho. She is the Executive Director for UGANET, and we're talking about Zero Discrimination Day. But then UGANET is not only looking at zero discrimination for HIV, but also other social inequalities like education. Dora.
Yes, so Zero Discrimination Day focuses on the broader question of inequalities.
I see.
Why aren't we unequaled? Why do we suffer indignity because of the different statuses that people have? Economic status, health status, racial differences, because there are some races, for example, globally, that might access treatment or be supported more than others. So today is not only around HIV discrimination, it is discrimination broadly.
Even education, the fact that some of our girls might not be making their way to schools again.
Yes, it is gendered discrimination and how that impacts on even access to education.
All right, Dora Chichoncho, give us your final words to the youth who are watching this show right now, who also think that they fear pregnancy more than HIV.
So we are all interested and are looking forward to see a time we shall close the battle to HIV. The global world tells us that we have received treatment, there is testing, there are government programs, but the last mile to closing HIV is going to be human rights empowerment, human rights for all, dignity for all. So discrimination, if it is still happening, it is closing many people out there. Today I stand with the young girls that would have been in class, that would be sitting for those exams that have not had an opportunity. The discrimination for those that didn't happen today because we got a COVID-19 epidemic needs to be addressed head on. It is our call to government that we will end discrimination if we increase opportunities for women.
Dora Chichoncho Musinguzi, the Executive Director, UGANET. I'm afraid we've come to the end of the show. Very insightful conversation, really. Thank you. And of course, she's talking about 1.4 million infections in Uganda and 38 million infections on the global world. My name is Rome Busiku, and this is Morning at NTV. Let's interface tomorrow.